Good evening, everyone. This is the April 6th, 2023 meeting of the Rules Committee of the Cleveland Community Police Commission. So welcome to everybody here and online. We're just starting a little bit late. Thank you for your patience at 5:09. We will do a roll call right now. Commissioner Benito.
Present.
Commissioner Donaldson.
Present.
Commissioner Ridgeway.
Present.
Commissioner Rodriguez.
Present.
And I'm Commissioner Wang. Thank you so much. We will move right into some old business. We had started looking over sections of our administrative procedures. We had some extensive discussion of the Brady Giglio list with members of the prosecutor's office and Mr. Kerry Howard. So we have a few more things, a few more people that we would like to bring in for that. So if it's okay with everybody, we're going to table 2.7 until our 4:20 meeting, where we're going to have a representative from the city. Right, we're hoping to, because we couldn't get her here today. Do you have any follow-up on that, Mr. Woodrick?
They're from the law department in the city?
Aliqua, she's
it's the
prosecutor's office
of the city. So yes, Aquila Jordan, she's been invited to come on the 20th. Haven't heard back yet.
Okay. She approached me I met her at the consent decree meeting. So it would I think it would be good for us to I think we know probably what we need to do to make ourselves as, quickly compliant with the charter, but it would be good to have a more global understanding of how to make that reporting system, even more efficient and more conducive. Ms. Benito?
That's fine with me, but also Commissioner Ridgeway brought up some, kind of questions about maybe what that starting place should be for section 2.7. And so it might be worth having a conversation about that now, because I don't think we necessarily need to know. I feel like what we're going to be getting out of the conversation from the city is maybe specifically what information we can, like the processes they're already doing. And so I think it's possible that we could look at it more generally and then just update it after 4:20, or I'm totally also okay with waiting, but that was just a thought.
Commissioner Ridgeway?
Yes, my concern was when we talked about the starting point, because there were several references that actually said that it was supposed to be this collaborative relationship between us, and public safety office or even the police department. That's why I suggested bringing those people in so we could hear some of that, because when they said that we were supposed to manage the list, I didn't quite know what that meant, but they explained it quite well. So I guess it's just a matter of whether we feel we need the input of the city prosecutor to give us a more complete picture of our responsibility when it comes to this list. Mm-hmm. But I think we got a lot of answers and didn't get them too. I mean, in terms of saying that it's basically ours to maintain. They send a letter out from the state, different things, but I think things weren't in place.
Right. So, Mr. Gerber, I think you had some suggestions about what we can do in the meantime. We obviously.
So to the chair and the committee, what I wrote remains still my recommendation. The very first thing we do is get the letters from the prosecutor that they generate and make those public. No one does that. Even the prosecutor's office doesn't keep a record of who gets those letters. So if someone were to ask the prosecutor who's received letters, they would say, I'm not sure. We'd have to go back and look through every single file in the universe. And it just doesn't seem like it's that difficult to get the letters, make a list, and put it on the website. So we meet the minimum obligation of this. And then the question after that is, You heard the safety director say to the committee when he appeared at the last meeting that they were working on developing a policy, right? So step 2 would be when they bring their policy back to us, see what new information we have that could help us go a next step. So if there's additional points of information to add to our list, the 2 sources we would get those are the city prosecutor or the Division of Public Safety. And then the final step is down the line, we do have some discretion when we start looking at police discipline to say, well, the prosecutor didn't see that this person should have an integrity issue. The city didn't note that they have an integrity issue. What if we feel that there's an integrity issue? But that's further down the line because that one has some tricky legal areas that are undefined right now. So small steps. Right now, we just, the feeder process that we know for sure is the prosecutor's office. So, at a very minimum, we can adopt that in here and just and say, we will work to gather the letters that exist from the prosecutor's office, review those letters, and make them public. Which is here in this paragraph. So the commission shall, at a minimum, obtain copies of these letters and make them available to the public as mandated in Charter 115.5. The commission staff shall also monitor all discipline notices for evidence of officers who are alleged to engage in behavior arguable for inclusion on the Brady Giglio list. So that's where we would start saying, okay, these individuals don't have letters, but the disciplinary notice says that they were disciplined for integrity. So then the question will be, when we have a disciplinary committee, what do we do with those? So that's a little bit further down the line.
Ms. Ridgeway?
Thank you to the chair. And I guess to the executive director, it was my understanding that you do get copies of discipline notifications. You do get those, right? And so I think when we were talking about this, it was suggested, and I think you may have been the one who made that suggestion or recommendation, was that we could at some point move forward and approve this and just put to be completed or whatever that language was at a later date.
And so that's what this pretty much says already. So the only difference is that this front end is explaining this is all the law right here.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start from the beginning again. So it all has to do with officer integrity, and obviously it's important to the community. That's why they put it in 115.5. This is our mandate under 115.5 in quotes. So it can't be changed or edited. And to the point of what does managing it mean, it's right here in the first sentence. This can be summarized as managing. We have a duty to solicit, gather, compile, organize, and maintain, and generally update information. So that is, to summarize that, means managing this information, right? We have to do all of those things. So we're the only people in as far as I know, the state of Ohio that is charged with doing that. So we're the only ones that would put a list out, and we are mandated to do these things here that are listed. So the only place that we can reasonably start, because the system where we would get that information from doesn't have a process. The only process we've identified is that Cuyahoga County prosecutor has a panel which creates letters, right? So knowing that means that at a minimum, we have an obligation under 115 to make those letters public. We just have to catch them, right? We have to find them, to gather them and put them out. So that would be this gathering and compiling of what already exists. Our obligation is there to do so. So we can begin that immediately. As soon as you pass this rule, the staff and I can start working, and there's no need for the commission to approve it. There's no need to do anything. We just simply pass a rule that says, when we get these letters, we put them right on the public website, right?
To the chair. So one edit that I saw on here, if you go down, it says personal file. Should that be personnel file?
Yes. Where is that?
Personnel
Right
file.
above the
Right there, it's
highlighted
unhighlighted.
paragraph. No, go back down. Right above the highlighted paragraph. Officers personnel file. Right, a little down.
Right there,
Right
right
there.
there.
One sentence down.
The last
Oh,
sentence,
yeah,
personnel
okay.
file.
The other question that I had is, so it sounded like there was a couple kind of letters that go back and forth, and there was the letter that the prosecutor's office will send to, or the request that the county prosecutor's office will make to all of the police departments, asking them to send that Brady information once a year. And are we imagining that we would want to ask the division to send whatever information they send to the prosecutor's office to send it to us, or to only ask the prosecutor's office to send us the actual Brady letters, or both? And then the other question I have is, would we want to make this rule before talking to the prosecutor's office to find out if they're like, well, I mean, either way, obviously we're tasked to do this. So is that something that we would want to talk to them about first before passing the rule, or would we wait to reach out to them to request that after we pass this?
So through the chair of the commissioner, to the first point, so the division, what the division does with the prosecutor's office is between them. So yes, the prosecutor's office asks all the chiefs in Cuyahoga County and all law enforcement agencies for information once a year. It should be more than once a year, in my humble opinion. So that's their process. It's not our process, right? So the only thing we need to get from that prosecutor's office is those letters when they determine that it's a Brady violation in their opinion. Now, this last thing has to do with, as we mentioned, and as the safety director said, they're developing a Cleveland policy. It's in the consent decree that they have to do this. So we don't have to guess what they're going to do. We just have to wait to see what they're going to write down and then make sure they do what they say. Or if we think it's grossly inadequate, we can chime in at that point. But there's lots of people working on this over at the division right now. So there will be a period of time. We will just have to wait. So we don't need to jump ahead of that. Let them do their job and come back to us with their solution for how they will handle it internally. And then we will adopt our policy based on what they do internally, right? So it's just going to take a minute. And as far as, we don't know what the Cleveland prosecutor does with this yet. Kerry Howard wasn't very descriptive with that. So there may be another point where maybe the Cleveland prosecutor writes letters too. That's a second set of letters. That's easy for us to just add that to this list. So.
Ms. Benito.
Thank you. Thank you for that. To the chair, so just to clarify, so you're imagining that the source of the letters for us would be from the prosecutor. When we ask the prosecutor, when you send it to the division, please send it to us also, or are you imagining that we would be asking, could you talk about the division policy that's coming out of the consent decree? So then are you saying that we would then be asking the division to send us the letters that they received, the Brady letters?
To the chair, or through the chair to the commissioner, yes. So we can ask the prosecutor now, they can resist or not give it. Cleveland has no choice. So we're going to say, when they receive a letter at Cleveland, they have to forward a copy of that letter to us. They can't say no to that, because 115 is a local Cleveland law that mandates that they provide what we ask for. The prosecutor doesn't report to the Cleveland charter. So if the prosecutor wanted to find a reason to not share this information with us, they could go through a long, lengthy legal process to not share it, but Cleveland can't. So once it becomes property of Cleveland, we can then receive it from them. So, of course, I will ask as a courtesy that the prosecutor send us, but it's not, that's not the point where we would put pressure if we don't get them that way. We would put pressure on the Cleveland Division of Police to share those letters when they receive them.
So the text here mostly talks about the county prosecutor's office as in terms of the Brady letters. So do we want to add something that says, which is then placed in the officers which is then placed by the Cleveland Division of Police's officers personnel file, so that we're making it clear that this is related to the Division of Police? And then do we want to explicitly say the commission at a minimum should obtain copies of these letters from the Cleveland Division of Police and make them available, just so that it's clear what because I think right now it's highlighting that there's a letter that goes between the county prosecutor and the division, but it's not saying where we're requesting it from.
I think that's fine. That's great. I have another question. What do we do? We're saying when the letters are somehow being moved or given. I imagine there's historical letters. There are people in this so-called Brady situation, officers. How do we get those? There must be documentation of historical correspondence. So that is actually more, because we want the community to know that these officers too, right? Because we'll never get theoretically, there will never be another letter sent if the officer is already on the Brady list.
To the chair, yes, we'll work as hard as we can to get as many as we can, as fast as we can. So as we go back further, it'll be harder to find them. So you just have to give us time. But the very first point is, if one comes tomorrow, we want to have the mandate from this commission to do that. I could do it proactively, sure, but it's incumbent on you all to have a process that I follow, a basic one. So, if you approve these, if you finish this tonight and say this is good enough, and you move it to adoption on the 12th, and the commission agrees, then on the 13th, I'll be sending an email to the Division of Police saying every letter you receive from April 13th forward, we need to receive a copy of, right? So it's just a matter of, my authority comes from you all. So as soon as you give me that mandate, I can then push it forward to start collecting these letters. So,
I think it seems like it would be good to at least get this portion passed or introduce it to the commission on Wednesday. My other question is, so theoretically, because there's no file for this, if there is a new case, an officer that was already Brady'd, there would be a letter for that person if there was a case that officer was involved in.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's not that will take time to uncover how we find those. Because from experience, I know what the division will say, because we've been through this with them before. They'll say, we don't have the ability to look in everybody's file, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a common thing that they use when you blanket ask for something like that. They're like, well, we would have to manually go on every officer's file and search for that. So we have to, you have to give me an opportunity to come up with a creative way to work with them to get as many letters in the past as we can, and I don't know how far back this letter system goes, so I'll also find out from the prosecutor, when did they start doing this? I don't think it's that old of an initiative, so probably we're not going backwards that many years to find these. Mm-hmm. So that's the first starting point, is I have to talk to the prosecutor's office and say, when about was the first time you sent a letter? Because this is a new initiative, this committee that the prosecutor's office was discussing isn't that old of a committee. So I don't think that this is something that goes back that far, but it will take us time to find the old ones. It's not off the table because there isn't a time limit on this. The second part of it is, when we find the old ones, we have to check it for validity. As the prosecutor's office mentioned, that some of these disciplines have been overturned, or there's other circumstances that have made those letters invalidated. So those older letters are a little more complicated than the newer ones, but we'll figure that out. And you don't have to be that specific in the rules. We just have to say what you want my office to do generally. And if those letters are a point of information that you are comfortable using, you put it in the rules, and then we will use those letters, and we will come up with an internal process for how to vet them.
Okay, and I had another question, if you could just give us, so this was mandated by the charter. What did the consent decree say about the Brady Giglio?
The consent decree didn't say anything about it, but what they identified at the last status conference is they have to develop a new policy related to officer integrity, which they haven't had before, and that's a new development in the consent decree. So that is now an accountability piece, which came out of the consent decree modification when 115.5 was passed. So they know they need to have a policy on this, so they're just behind in creating one. Okay. So I we can change the 180 days, and we could just put a simple sentence in here that the commission will revisit this rule once the division completes its work on the integrity policy mandated by the consent decree. So,
Yes.
Yes, thank you. I'm more comfortable going ahead and approving this today than I was the previous, not the meeting where the, people came to, but the meeting before then. Because I didn't understand how we could approve this as part of our duty and responsibility if we didn't know the process for how we received information.
right.
And, but that was clarified by the guests who were here at the last meeting. And I'm very comfortable approving it with the understanding that, I know we had said 180 days maybe, but I'm more comfortable approving it knowing that we will update it at some point when that information and the policy or whatever, whenever these things are received or approved and received. I'm more comfortable today than I was
That's good.
at that meeting 2 weeks ago.
Okay, so do we have any, Commissioner Donaldson, Rodriguez, do you have any thoughts about this?
I guess I'll chime in. I do like the last sentence because it allows us some flexibility because we want, since there wasn't a timeline, we want to ensure that we're working in partnership and ensure that we are in alignment with whatever the division creates, and hopefully we're working together.
And is there a deadline in the consent decree about the integrity policy? We just want to make sure that things move along in.
There's generalizations. I expect that it'll be created probably within a year of now. I mean, it's the consent decree policy is not a fast moving policy, and you're not going to make that go any faster if we write it in here that
Yeah, that's right.
in our rule that they should make it faster. I mean, it's just not.
Right.
We'll keep the pressure on them, but that entire process when the DOJ and the monitoring team is involved in creating a policy just takes a long time to get one finalized and approved by the court.
So could we mandate by charter? There's a little squiggle there. We shall have a minimum. All discipline notices. So again, if that takes an unexpectedly long time, the integrity policy, I guess we're going to have to revisit whether we are willing, if say an officer that is not on their list, but we feel could qualify, I guess we have to.
Okay, so we can.
Do we want to write about the procedure for that? Is it something, obviously, the whole commission would have to decide, is it something that we vet first as a rules committee with the help of research from the staff? So I'm just envisioning if, see, it's here. Okay. So we're on the same page. That right now what we're agreeing to is to obtain the copies of letters from the Cleveland Division of Police and the prosecutor's office. And those may need to be vetted too, to just make sure, because we're putting on a public database. Because I'm trying to think, what if an officer comes to us and say, I shouldn't be on this list, right? Or.
I think in some ways, having if the prosecutor's office has determined it and we're putting it up, I think what we're just saying is this is who the prosecutor's offices have determined. We're not necessarily saying we're just providing the flow of information. So I think that kind of will excuse us from any liability if they would then need to go to the prosecutor. Yeah.
But if they're opposing like a disciplinary matter and we're the final discipline over the police, can they come to us? Is there a way that they would come and say, I don't agree with this discipline matter, and now I'm on this Brady list, and I don't?
To the chair, no, we only, so that in 115.5, we can increase discipline, right? We do not have the ability to decrease discipline, except in very narrow circumstances, like whistleblower cases or retaliation and things that are like that. So there's like two things that we can decrease discipline for. Very narrow. So no, again, that's something that the division would have to take up. So if, and we'll check with the prosecutor. So the same rules apply. If the prosecutor says we're rescinding a letter, then we would rescind it from our website, right? So.
And do we need to put, so this is going to be on our website. How will the public access this? How will they know? Oh, go ahead.
So when you rescind, when the rescind letters, you will be included in that. You would just take it off the website.
Right,
Okay.
right. And we could just make a note that, the letter existed, but it was rescinded. So it doesn't mean that the record will be destroyed. It means that we'll just make a note that says, this record existed. There was a letter for this officer, but it was rescinded on blah, blah, blah. Right, so.
Okay. So, and this will just be on some portion of our website?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have a whole page just for this. So it'll be very easy. We get compliments on our website all the time, so I just have to put that out to
And
the
make it
public.
easy for people to access. That will be good. And we will, once that page of the website is ready, we will openly provide that link. All right, so are we satisfied with this portion 2.7 to vote on moving it to full commission? Are there other thoughts?
Yes, to the chair, to the executive director. Give me one more time the language that we're gonna use that will basically say that we will, at whatever point we're notified, we'll update this. Because we had said 180 days, but now we aren't putting a number of days on it, right?
We're saying right here in the highlighted, this rule will be revisited when the Cleveland Division of Police creates its integrity policy as mandated in the consent decree, or if the creation of the policy exceeds 1 year.
Or if the creation of the policy exceeds 1 year. So if it exceeds 1 year and we haven't gotten an approved policy, then the rules committee will come back and deal with this again?
Yeah, we'll create our own policy, or we'll take a greater lead role in making
Okay,
it
I just
happen.
want to make sure we understand what our responsibility will be if the police department does not meet a reasonable timeline in creating that policy.
It's highly unlikely it'll take a
Okay.
year.
So,
It's a priority policy. Yeah.
so what, could we say said policy so it's clear which one we mean without, in the notifications, he's 1 year. 1 year from the option of this role, right? You are fairly confident that it will be done before then.
We will at least have seen a draft before then, so we can move forward at
Okay,
that point. Yeah.
all right, so, does that, Commissioner Ridgeway, does that?
I'm comfortable, yeah,
Okay.
yes, Chair, I'm comfortable with that. I just want, my whole concern was always, how could we be responsible for something when we didn't we had no control over when the information will come to us. But I think this states that very clearly, and I'm more comfortable now.
Great. Are there any other thoughts? So we're going to do this piecemeal. So would anybody like to make a motion to move this forward?
I'll make a motion to approve section 2.7 of the draft administrative procedures. To approve? Did I say approve? I make a motion to approve.
We need to approve it and then move it?
Yeah, you can approve it formally and move it. Sure.
Yeah. And move it, right, to full commission on once, so we were.
To then be introduced to the full commission on next Wednesday, April 12th.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, we're going to take a vote. Commissioner Benito,
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson,
Aye.
Commissioner Ridgeway,
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez,
Aye.
and I vote aye. So unanimous to move section 2.7 to the full commission for discussion at our full commission meeting next Wednesday. Great, thank you. We will now move on to section 2.8, which involves public speaking, commentary, and media relations. We're revisiting this portion. Sometimes just having a little space, we could see different things. Are there any broad concerns about this section now that we've had time to marinate a little bit about this?
I have a question. Is the be transparent, is that supposed to be a list? We're missing some punctuation. I don't know if that matters. Should that be like a list with commas?
I think
Or
it's just
bullet
it's defining what be transparent means.
Let me
Colon.
see, this
Like
is
bullets?
listing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like bullet.
Okay, there we go.
Just a note, formatting always comes last, so once it's adopted, we format it when it looks all nice in the manual. So, and we check for spelling and punctuation and all that before it's published officially.
We do need a relative pronoun there. Don't volunteer information that's confidential because or because this diminishes. Right, it's kind of in phrase form right now.
I think it's
It's
supposed
a
to be three
list.
different things.
So it's a list, so yeah, it's
It's
a,
confidential, that diminishes the singular commission, or
Well, but the diminishes esteem because this diminishes esteem, right?
I think it's three separate clauses, so it's saying don't volunteer information that is confidential, that diminishes
Oh, I
the
see.
esteem
Okay.
of the commission, and then maybe we could.
And
say
that
or-
harms, yeah. Put another, you need the serial comma that would have solved it, the comma before and. Would have, let's put a comma before and because that's what was confusing about it. Yeah. Yes. Ryan?
Are you supposed to avoid contractions in these
Formal documentation.
formal
Yeah.
documents?
Do not volunteer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
not offended by it. My grammar changes.
So let's just go over, the general content to see if we're okay. Would someone mind actually reading this out loud and maybe we can hear it?
Sure. So we're starting from this paragraph. The co-chairs are the official spokespersons of the commission and in general are the primary source of interviews for the media about the general work and official positions of the commission. The co-chairs may also designate this role to commissioners when they are unable to fulfill the duty or if someone has greater knowledge on a specific topic. However, commissioners are often asked to speak as subject matter experts for a variety of policing topics. This activity should be encouraged and supported. When a commissioner is giving an individual opinion, it should be made clear that the opinion belongs to them and does not represent the position of the commission. Co-chairs and the executive director shall be notified in advance of all planned speaking engagements regarding the work of the commission. The commission has a full-time staff available to assist with topic research, marketing, media, and speaking engagements. Prior to a scheduled speaking appearance, the commissioner shall reach out to the executive director to obtain the most up-to-date facts and information about the subject matter they are asked to speak upon. The executive director is authorized to speak to the media on the commission's work, the work of staff, and provide comments that support the mission and strategy of the police commission. The executive director is subject to city policy regarding communications with the public. Staff may also be designated to speak to the media with the approval of the executive director.
So, commissions were, in the first sentence, there needs to be a apostrophe. Speak to the media on the commissions. It's possessive work. In the same
Back
sentence.
up here.
Okay. The sentence that you were in. Unless.
I'll find it in a moment here. Oh, yes.
Okay. Are you satisfied with that section, Mr. Donaldson?
I have a question to Executive Director Jason. Can you just give us an idea of the media relations as far as their expectations on when we will respond to them? I'm just kind of thinking about timelines and if you just have a general idea of in the past what their expectations were for us to respond to their inquiries, just so as the co-chairs are starting to designate people to speak if they're not able to, then we'll at least kind of have a general idea of what to expect.
To the chair, the commissioner, it's all over the place. So there's no like standard Robert's Rules of Orders they follow about they'll call us and be like, it's 3:00 p.m. Can you give us a comment at 5? And then we want it to be in person. Or sometimes it'll be like, we're doing a story a month from now. So it's very random. And sometimes that dictates who can do it. So in those instances, we try to never miss a media opportunity. I'll be very clear about that. Like every single chance we get to be printed or quoted, we try to take here because it matters. So it's also dependent on availability. There'll be times where the co-chairs will be like, I just can't, I'm at work or whatever. And they'll either ask me to handle it or they'll say, call this commissioner or whatever. And I think this has the leeway for that in it. That's why it says what it says, so that's why the co-chairs can designate the role of commissioners when they're unable to fulfill the duty on a specific topic.
Okay.
So there's really nothing more you can write to, about times or response times.
Okay, and that's why I asked, because my thought was that we couldn't write anything or add anything to it, but I at least wanted to bring it up because I didn't want situations where co-chairs are designating tasks and then the person that they designated to is like, oh, I can't do it either. Like, I just don't want it to be bouncing around.
And I'm usually the last resort. So I've been in the media a lot lately. That's because you guys haven't been here, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like majority of time, it's best if a commissioner is and the co-chairs are handling the speaking. But as a last resort, like I said, we try not to miss. So I'll fill it if no one else can. Most often, or the executive director should, whoever that may be. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're pretty efficient with media, and they like us here. So.
Okay, so there's more to that section, right? So let's move on to the crisis. Are there any other concerns from this session? No? Great, so we're going to move on to crisis communications.
All right, crisis communications. High-profile events will occur in Cleveland that risk an increase of conflict between the police and the communities they serve. These types of incidents also increase the level of general public concern. The commission shall work jointly with the city to ensure that the public has a factual understanding of the event and also maintain the integrity of the investigation. Only the co-chairs and the executive director are authorized to speak or put out a statement about high-profile cases or crisis events involving the Cleveland Division of Police while the event is under investigation. All communications guidelines outlined in the previous section apply to speaking during a crisis. The executive director shall work with city officials to ensure that there is a process in place to notify the commission of these events as soon as reasonably possible. When an incident occurs, the executive director shall notify the co-chairs as soon as reasonably possible. The executive director shall endeavor to create a joint crisis communication plan with the mayor's office of communications to ensure smooth, timely flow of information. It is practical and recommended that an emergency meeting be held when a community crisis of significant public concern warrants it. The commission does not need to vote to approve public messages that are generalized and not taking an official stance on a business issue such as a recognition of an event occurring or condolences. The staff shall notify the chair when these messages are crafted. So that kind of solves the problem that we had initially about, trying to be timely around what happened in Memphis and just a basic message is automatically approved through this policy.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Ridgeway.
To the chair, this is another area where I had some concern before. And I guess wherever there is language that says that this commission is responsible for something, but that responsibility is predicated on somebody else, being involved, I have an issue because the same thing here in terms of crisis communication, it says that the executive director shall endeavor to create a joint crisis communications policy with the mayor's office of communications. So have you done that before with prior commissions?
So it was a major issue after Tamia Chapman died, and everyone on the planet Earth who knew about crisis communications was in favor of doing it. It came down to the police chief just did not want to do it, and he was supported by the mayor at the time. So I don't think that this administration would push back on us attempting to say, let's just put in writing a general understanding memorandum of how we operate together during those initial hours, right? So that would include like them writing in their policy, at least at a minimum, because they have emergency notification lists, right? So putting, the executive director and the assistant director on the emergency notification list. So if something happened at 2 a.m., I would get the text and I would know instead of seeing it in the news in the morning, right? So those are the simple things that I think will be easy. And it just says endeavor. It's not, so it just means we have an obligation and we're putting our best foot forward to attempt to align with them. Because cities that don't do this, administrations that don't do this, do it at their own risk, because then they're going to put us out there on our own, and they risk, a conflict during a crisis of information, and that's never a good thing. It adds complication to the whole situation. So I think this is doable, and I'm hopeful that they'll see the value in creating something.
So you're very comfortable endeavoring.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. I endeavor all the time. I have a good success rate, but I can't guarantee it. So
Jason was born to endeavor.
Well, I'm fine then.
Okay.
I'm just concerned when we are responsible for something that's predicated on somebody else being involved, and I don't know how we could do that policy wise if we have not.
Right.
But you're endeavoring, so I'm okay. I'm all right. I'm okay with this.
Thank you. Mr. Donaldson.
To the chair, I also want to know a little bit more about the messages that the commission put out that are generalized, not really taking a stance. From my understanding, there have been messages put out where some commissioners signed off on them, or they signed the bottom and some didn't. So I'm just wondering if we could just talk a little bit more about that process, and if that's something that we should maybe put in, saying that signatures are not mandatory, or I'm just wondering if that should be a part of this as well.
So signature policy. So if co-chairs are authorized to speak, and they put something out as the co-chairs, their signatures are fine. When we adopt an entire formal thing from the commission, a statement, it will have everyone's signature. And we could put this in there that even if you didn't vote for it, your signature is going to go on it, because if it carries, and that's important. It's not once it becomes a majority statement in writing, if it carried, then it's still the work of the commission. So, we've only had one time where someone threatened to write a dissenting opinion. It's never actually happened. But we could add that in there. That would probably be somewhere in here, about written reports, and statements approved by the majority of the commission shall include the names and or signatures of all commissioners regardless of their vote. That's a good point.
That's a very good point. Yes.
I had one point to make. I don't know if it's related. About the crisis communication, I feel that that we probably need to flesh out what high profile means and define it a little bit better, especially because we're saying that only the co-chairs can speak. So I think we should better define what I think we intuitively may know, but that to me is too big. It doesn't have to be, this. So I mean, something can be high profile today and tomorrow, who knows? Is it a cycle? Is it a three-day news cycle? Teri Nichols was very high profile, and now there's hardly any discussion of it. So high profile Right,
That's the most I would say.
right.
Those are
So it's
just,
certainly a little bit
but
more.
it's not, right, it's not comprehensive and it never will be. We can't predict
Right.
what will become.
I just-
I mean, a high profile event could be, there's been a lot of things on social media lately. For instance, when there was Officer of the Year who was later flagged by an anti-defamation group that for what were allegedly anti-Semitic remarks. So was that high profile? Yes. You know, so those types of things, we just kind of have to use our best judgment. It's going to be impossible to come up with a comprehensive list.
Right, but I think
You know.
these two examples at least give us some general, because I think people may have different views of what high profile means. So if those are two examples, that would be good. And high profile events in Cleveland, right? High profile events, comma, such as officer involved shooting or
It already said in Cleveland.
right, but it says will occur with significant media coverage. I don't. Oh, I think we're trying to mash too many things into one sentence here.
High profile events such as an officer involved shooting or use of force, which garner significant media coverage will occur in Cleveland. These events
Increase.
That sentence doesn't make sense to me. High profile events such as an officer involved shooting or use of force, which,
Then at that point now, we don't need the which.
yeah, we don't need which. High profile events such as officer shooting garner significant media coverage, period. High profile events in Cleveland.
Including something needs to be there, showing that the
Yeah.
office includes shooting and use of force are examples of
Yeah.
high profile events.
High profile events, but you're saying high profile events in Cleveland.
Yes.
We're not putting.
We're not
yeah.
gonna, we shouldn't generally be commenting on every high profile event that happens in, you know.
So high profile events in that occur in Cleveland, such as an officer involved shooting, use of force. Could or could garner significant, right?
They will.
Will garner, will likely garner significant media coverage. Will garner significant media coverage, okay? These events increase risk and increase the risk. Increase potential conflict. We have a comment from from the public. Do you want to announce? Give Lou there's a mic there. Or we can just use this.
Hi, this is Lou. The question would be, if this particular sentence we specify is a high profile in Cleveland, as I remember when we first started our meetings, we already had an incident not in Cleveland, people consider as high profile. So if we have this particular sentence, does that mean we should have a sentence to specify we are not obligated to make comments on the high profile in other areas, in other cities?
Mm-hmm.
I think we should have that to contrast that. Otherwise, people may still criticize, the lack of.
Lack of concern about.
Right. We are concerned for all people's well-being, but since we are not the people there, we don't know all the facts, so we can use another paragraph to describe that. So that will help to alleviate the possible, hiccups.
Mm-hmm. I think the concern that I had maybe related was that I don't know if we should limit other commissioners other than the co-chairs from speaking about high-profile events generally in America or in other places. It's just because the point of this is to maintain the integrity of the investigation in Cleveland, right? To make sure, because quite honestly, any one of us, if we are asked in a high-profile event or any event, our opinion for which we don't have facts, I think the reasonable thing to say is that I don't know the facts. I will look into it, and perhaps give you a comment later.
Sorry to interrupt. I think that's a very good suggestion. If we put that particular expression you just had in there, in that case, each individual commissioner makes comments or not, or the whole commission makes a statement or not, will all be justified.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, I do believe I'm anticipating some potential pushback from certain members of the commission. Maybe I'm wrong, for this.
It's here that's very specific that says about high-profile cases or crisis events involving the Cleveland Division of Police. So it's already there. I mean, this is a limited restriction to when it's local, and we can mess up an investigation by putting out incorrect facts about it.
Right.
So, us commenting on something that happens in Columbus is irrelevant. The news most likely won't even care, and we can't really harm their investigation because we don't have firsthand knowledge. Here, people would assume we're giving firsthand facts and knowledge. So, to community member Lou's point, I don't think we have to say that in here. This is very clear that it only applies to Cleveland, right? The rest of these rules apply to if we're speaking on somewhere else in the universe, but right here in Cleveland is where we have the potentially to negatively impact by putting out unfactual information, something that's happening in the public. And we can be held accountable for that. There have been cases in Cleveland where there was a case where Phil Habib, I think he's a retired police officer now, he sued the Ohio State Senate for speaking. There was a senator there, Shirley Smith, and he won that case for defamation because Shirley was quick to get out. She was a representative here when Brandon McLeod was killed, and he actually won a case for defamation because of some language that a state representative used about him and what had occurred. So it is very relevant, and there is liability if we jump into a crisis soon and just say whatever we want. So it's very important.
So I would like that, because right now thank you, Mr. Goodrick, these locals, so if we explain the purpose of this, I think it will be more likely adopted. The purpose is not to limit anyone's ability to give their opinion, anyone commissioners, but to maintain the integrity of the investigation. I don't know if that is 100% spelled because it's talking about increasing decreasing potential conflict between these entities and increasing public concern. But I think there's this pragmatic thing is if we say something unfactual, highly opinionated, especially in a high profile event, that could really compromise the legal process. And I would be more comfortable if we spell that out because that provides the foundational purpose of this rule.
Isn't it kind of saying that when it says that,
Yes,
also maintaining the integrity of the investigation?
I would like it more, like, I would like that is saying to maintain the integrity of investigations. That is saying, we need to work together to maintain the integrity of the investigation. I'm hoping for a statement that says we need to, have this communication process down in order to maintain the process.
So I think it would be before that final highlighted sentence, starting with all communications guidelines. I think in that sentence prior to that sentence, you would say, and while the event is under investigation, in order to reduce blah, 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 blah.
In order to maintain the integrity and due process of the investigation. You can say it. I mean, I I like to say higher, just so when people are reading it, they understand. High profile require significant and require significant will garner significant and require
Yeah, for that one.
a communication process or
Yeah.
public communication process and maintain the
Where do I see?
To avoid interference.
by to ensure a fair and
Yeah. Yeah, and respectful process.
I think that,
thus maybe thus
that makes it a long sentence, or it can be. Yeah, and either way,
I don't think
we're,
it's needed, we're not really using that formal language in all of it.
well I want it there because it's this is I mean the whole purpose is to say why are we having this communication process, you know, it is therefore important or it is important that the
Okay, I'm fine, if you wanna have it done, that's fine.
therefore
I like that one.
okay. All right, thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, it's to the chair, to the executive director. Just a quick question here. So this last line that's highlighted, all communications guidelines outlined, where is that? Now go back to, yeah, all communications guidelines outlined in the previous section apply to speaking during a crisis. I don't know if that's true because the previous gives other people an opportunity to speak as well, right? As long as they're expressing their own personal opinion. The previous, but then in the crisis, it's limited to
Mm-hmm.
certain people. So I don't know if all the guidelines in the previous section apply in this one.
and I was wrestling with that too I was thinking about it while you were thinking about it. That was added the last time we went through this, so it came from this group, so you'd have to rethink why you put that in there. But I think there are some conflicts saying that.
Yeah.
I think this applies, and that's probably what you were trying to say, is that the bullet points specifically
But
apply,
not,
but the rest does not. So, so I
You can
think,
say you can specifically say in paragraph whatever, or the bulleted list given in paragraph this is this section.
Maybe it's not necessary.
I mean
it's pretty
it's
specific in the crisis section. Maybe you don't need that last line. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
but
I don't
know
think
that last line.
you probably don't need it. I mean,
Yeah.
the two co-chairs are the only ones, and you would hope that they would be. The guidelines provided in the bulleted list from the previous section shall apply.
I think it's confusing if you put that in there, because someone can then say, well, you said this, it's conflicting.
Yeah.
So I'm not big on conflicting. I think it's, you know, you're very limited here. The co-chairs and the executive director are the only ones, so
Yeah.
I think they would be at a level where they would understand that, you know.
Is there a potential, and I'm just, trying to maintain like a balance of our opinions, and what do we do if the two co-chairs are in conflict with the rest of the commission about how to communicate during a high profile situation?
I think I don't think we can, lay out a plan for that. I think then at the next commission meeting, they would potentially call a vote to decommission them as the co-chairs.
Right, it shouldn't be any problem, because we should really be saying, we're looking for the facts, and we're going to be, it's a very in a high profile situation, I don't even think the co-chair should be speaking that. I mean, they will be the only ones to speak, but opining on what will become.
To the chair, the other piece of this is we are taking our lead in the crisis communication piece from the police department of the city of Cleveland, whatever, anyway. We're working with them to determine what the response should be, which is unlike the regular communications when people can. So I'm not sure that anything else needs to be said. It said on the crisis communication, it says that the commission shall work jointly with the city to ensure that the public has a factual understanding of the event and also maintain the integrity of the investigation. And then it says that the co-chairs and executive director authorized to speak about high-profile cases of crisis events involving the Cleveland Division of Police while the event is. I think it's very specific in terms of how where we take our lead from in crisis communication, as opposed to just regularly communicating with the media.
And so, to the committee, through the chair, hopefully the city will do the right thing and put out factual, unbiased information if we have a crisis, right? The only time I can see where we might have a deference is where, we cry foul about them not putting out information in a timely manner or possibly withholding information. That's within our purview, and that would be something strategically discussed, with the co-chairs and the executive director about, okay, we have solid information that's confirmed that they know something they're not telling us, or that, or they're waiting too long between press conferences. That's within our purview to then kind of say, but we're not interfering with the integrity. Then what we're doing is actually helping the integrity, right? That's always our job, is to be able to do that. So we don't have to go into that level of detail here, but that's the only time. If they're doing a great job, then we would say that. We would say, the city's putting out information timely. We're just repeating what they have to say. These are the facts of the matter. We're going to respect due process. And when this case eventually finishes, we'll review the investigation and look at it from the eyes of integrity, make sure they followed their policy, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that's pretty much our role in these situations. It's not to interfere. It's to watch how they do what they do. We have the right to critique how they do what they do, but not interfere in the investigation or opine on something before the investigation is completed, really, So
is there, as another point, is there, I think that there could be concern. So what happens if a commissioner violates, the co-chair speaking policy? Is there somewhere that we spelled out in the first section?
So here's the thing. There's really, what happens when a congressperson breaks the rules of Congress? There's really nothing you can do. I'm going to just be real with it. You can go through the process of formally censoring someone, but even that is like, okay, you don't have the power with your peers, only the mayor does. So you can make a statement if you felt you had a majority to do so against someone's behavior, always, if you feel it disrupts the integrity of the commission, but you don't really have any way to enforce what you're saying. Could you impeach a co-chair? Could you send a co-chair back to being a commissioner? Sure, if you wanted to go through all that process, but let's hope that people do the right thing and not write rules around the idea that, we might have someone who doesn't operate within the rules.
Well, my concern is that there are things that, just from my observation, could potentially, and thankfully I think that case has been settled, could potentially, but I think we would need I would like to see some training on what constitutes, like how do we avoid this legal liability and maintain due process. I think I think some people have a common sense approach to it, and I've just noticed a few instances that we are bordering on what I would think is dangerous territory in order to maintain that this is, again, not about telling someone what to say, when to say it, but this is about maintaining the integrity of all these investigations.
And just to be clear, if you're operating in good faith and trying to do the right thing, you're indemnified by the city of Cleveland. So you write a letter to the law director. So someone could sue you for anything. I mean, you could do everything right here, and an officer can sue you. So you are working under the color of the charter, and so in an instance like that, you would then the law department, you can write them a letter to request indemnification, and they would defend you through that if you weren't acting out of malice or absolutely outside the scope of what you're supposed to do. So the rules are written. We follow the rules, and everything should go the way that it's supposed to go.
Commissioner Richard and Commissioner Young.
And I think that's the most important thing. We didn't have the rules before, when we thought people might have been saying things that may have been borderline or whatever. We didn't have rules.
Mhm.
Now we have a set of rules
Right.
that will be presented to the full commission. And as Jason has said, we would hope that when people approve these, that they understand what they mean and are willing to abide by what they are. We had no rules before. So it was easy for people to, to say and do what they thought was appropriate. We have defined appropriateness here in this rule. So I think, our hope and prayer is that we will abide by this rule once it has been adopted by the full commission.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Yeah, and it is my hope that whoever the co-chairs are speaking basically on facts and information, and it shouldn't be based on experiences or feelings in general, because like it was stated that this could have a big impact and a liability. So I believe that it will, whoever it is, will be in good faith and operate in those guidelines. And I'm not sure what else would divide, because the role is really to focus on police, like accountability. So
Yeah. I think it would be good that if we get these things out, it might help people make sure that we get co-chairs that understand these rules and can apply them, and so I would move to have these two sections. Even this section I think is more important. Are there any other, was there anything else in this section? No? Mr. Goodrich, do you have something to say?
The specific section numbers will change as we build section 2, so that's why I X'd it right now. So as long as you adopt it with the title, that's fine. Just say the section on public speaking. I think that covers it.
So if there's not any more discussion, can I have a motion to adopt the section on public speaking, commentary, media relations, and move it to, or approve it for movement to the full commission?
I move to approve section 2.8 on public speaking, commentary, and media relations, and upon approval, move it forward to the full commission meeting on the 12th.
Seconded.
Thank you. We'll take a vote. Commissioner Benito,
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson,
Aye.
Commissioner Ridgeway,
Yes, I was getting ready to say here.
Commissioner Rodriguez,
I
and I vote aye. So it passes unanimously for approval to the full commission. Great. So it's now 6:15. I think we can easily finish section 2.9, and we can then have a check-in as to how we will proceed after that. 2.9 involves the expenditure approval and budget oversight. We had already looked at this section.
And there's nothing highlighted, so the first read, there were no concerns.
Do we have any additional concerns upon a second read? This does just seem like a lot of budgetary rules, right? Are these defined by the city?
So this is, yes, it's based off of city code, but it's also internal. We've had these controls in place for since probably 2018, if I had to guess. What it basically does is mandate. So you have two forms of budget control. One is you approve the main budget every year, right? And then, so you have to trust that these things, once they're approved, salary, staff training and professional dues, operational contractual services, except outside services, which you guys have purview over that small sum of money where you can get special projects done, materials and supplies, interdepartmental service charges, those types of things. You don't want to have an staff to come back to you every time they want to buy office supplies. So this just sets the guidelines and rules for when staff does have to return. And it's basically whenever we do a big project that costs over $10,000, we have to come back, present to the budget committee, talk about why it's needed. And usually those are run by committee. So that would mean that a committee somewhere, in the future wants to do a major project and it's going to require, because it's a percentage of our money and we only have so much, you guys have to really look at each project and decide its weight. So that's what this says.
Okay. So are there any concerns about Commissioner Ridgeway?
Yes, I had made this note before, but I think you had said that you could provide this, or staff could provide this under the bullet, the second bullet, staff training and professional dues. I have wanted to know what are kind of standing professional dues. What are we paying professional dues to annually?
Right now, only NACOL. That's the only organization we're part of, and it's not even a lot of money. It's.
I wasn't so concerned about the amount. We just wanted to know.
No, right now it's only NACOL.
Okay.
But in the future, there may be other organizations we decide to join, and once you guys decide that, we don't have to.
So is NACO in this year's budget? That those professional dues are in this year's budget?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a couple $100.
Oh, okay. And then the second question I had, and I think maybe it was answered before, under the third bullet, under operational contractual services, the question I had was, does this include the attorney?
So no, because that would be, that what is operational is like right now we're under contract for Terminex to come in and keep, if we were to have janitorial services in the office, like those are operational contractual. So outside professional services is consultants. That's what's listed there. Consultants are not. That's your purview if you want to hire consultants. So that's why it says outside. The exception is outside professional service consultants.
Okay, I just saw the consultants in parentheses. So that consultant would refer to attorney?
That's
I see.
if we hired attorneys in that capacity, yes.
So why don't we put because there was maybe with the exception of outside professional service such as consultants
would
and
make it
attorneys.
clearer.
Yeah.
Well, because attorneys, we're going to have staff attorney right now is what we voted on. So that's outside attorneys, yes. So.
Service providers such as consultants.
So this is a line item. That's why we don't. So that's a specific budgetary line item that covers things. So.
E.g.
Also, this is saying what the executive director has the power to do without consulting the commission. I think that, like, for example, the attorney, that wouldn't be Jason's discretion to contract the attorney. That would be under our discretion. So this list is specifically, this list is specifically for things that the executive director can do without the explicit permission of the commission.
Okay. Yeah, that makes it better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was like two.
Yeah.
Missing one had parentheses.
I think it looks good.
Do we have any more? Okay. So do you want to move this forward? Section 2.9? There are no other additional concerns.
I move that the section expenditure approval and budget oversight be voted on and moved to the full commission meeting for approval on April 12th.
I second.
Okay, we'll take a vote. Commissioner Benito,
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson, Commissioner Ridgeway,
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez,
Aye.
and I am Commissioner Wang, aye. So, section 2.9, expenditure approval and budget oversight will also be part of the package that we move, to full commission for discussion and vote on April 12th. And our next commission meeting, it will be at the Dunham Tavern, a special treat for, all Clevelanders. So it is now 6:24. We have the option to continue if everybody is still willing. We're going to now backtrack to 2.1, which involves the coordination, relationship management, and dispute resolution.
Just a point of clarification, Chair. So what we just approved, was it only 2.9, so 2.2, 9.2, 9.3, 9.4? Did
Yep.
it include those?
Include all of those, yes. Did you have
Oh.
any more concern?
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, we can go back if you,
No, that's fine. I
Okay.
just thought we were approving 2.9. I didn't realize it was all those other sections as well. But
well,
that's fine.
we have voted on those. So we approved 2.7, 2.8, and 2.9.
I think I include that on mine as approved. We did that last time.
No, we did this just now. We voted on the sections?
No, you're saying 2.9, 1.2.
Right.
We
Yeah.
read through it last time,
You
yeah.
read through
I know
that.
we read through it,
Yes.
but I didn't realize today when we made the motion.
Oh, I
that
see,
it was for the
okay.
full, the subsections under 2.9.
So is that
That's
okay?
fine.
Okay.
I just want to
Alright.
make sure I understand what we have approved and what will be moving forward to the full commission.
All right, so far we have 2.7, all of 2.7, 2.8, 2.9 moving to full commission, approved and moved to full commission. We will now, if everyone is willing to go back to section 2.1. Why don't we have someone read this again too, so we can. Who else would like to
I
read?
can, if someone else would like to do it, they're more than welcome to. Okay. All right, so, 2.1, oversight, coordination, police CPC relationship management, and dispute resolution. So just a point before I read in this, this is all critically important stuff here. It seems like common sense, but trust me when I say it needs to be written down, and we need to do our best to try and do something different, and have a mindset of coordination and cooperation before we flex authority, right? So that's what this is going to. We don't want to be in trench warfare with the division. So this kind of outlines, hopefully, what will set the precedent of working in advance, and it contains all the lessons we've learned from the past, since 2015 on how to do that if we have cooperation from both sides. So just putting that out there before I read on here. Okay, so the commission was granted broad powers under Charter 115.5 to exercise stronger civilian control and accountability over the Division of Police. Section 1.1 of the administrative rules contains a full list of duties and authority of the commission according to the charter. So that's already been approved, and we're referencing that here. Controlling powers explicitly stated in the charter section as adopted by the voters, and this is a summary of them, right? And these are controlling powers, includes final authority on whether discipline imposed on a police officer is sufficient, final authority on establishment of policy, applications, and examinations by which new police recruits must be sought out, recruited, and screened, including screened for bias, and final authority over police policy, procedures, and training regimens. Also included are the powers to investigate, audit, and make recommendations to provide technical assistance in nearly all domains of police management and divisional human resource matters. Commissioners may also compel Civilian Police Review Board and Office of Professional Standards to conduct investigations, as well as broadly audit investigative practices of those complementary civilian organizations. The complexity of the systems in place as a result of Charter 115.5 will require a great deal of strategic coordination to ensure efficiency and maximum value of taxpayer expenditures. The responsibilities of each organization can overlap and result in unnecessary duplication of efforts, costly court conflicts, and loss of community trust in the entire system. In order to reduce conflict and increase efficiency, every effort should be made by the members of the commission and its staff to conduct regular meetings with the Director of Public Safety, the Chief of Police, police commanders, the Inspector General, the Superintendent of Internal Affairs, representatives of the Civilian Police Review Board, and the Office of Professional Standards. Attend regular meetings of importance of each of the complementary organizations described above, such as monthly Civilian Police Review Board meetings, ComStat and other data sharing meetings, district policing committee meetings, policy review committees, training review board meetings, force review board meetings, and community and problem-oriented policing committee meetings. Commissioners may be assigned as liaisons to regular meetings. In addition, a member of staff shall always attend these meetings when available, regardless if commissioner is in attendance or not. Special business meetings should be called to discuss important issues, crisis situations, and matters of immediate public concern jointly with the city administration when possible, with key decision makers from the division and other city departments invited to attend. The executive director or their designee has sole authority to determine which staff members and attend commission meetings and other city meetings related to the work of the commission. You want to stop and review, or should I go through the whole thing?
Let's read till the, is there a section that, there were a
Yeah.
few typos, but, you can continue.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll, like, as I said, the typos will get handled. Charter 115.5 explicitly states that full cooperation by the chief of police, the executive head of the police force, I should say, and the executive head of the police force is required by law in the performance of its duties. However, the provision alone does not guarantee elimination of conflict. Every effort should be made to resolve conflicts in a healthy and constructive manner before the commission and the division of police prior to taking legal actions. Further, it is advisable that the commission consider alternative dispute resolution such as mediation by a third party before legal action is formally filed. An attempt at mediation should not result in loss of right to take action in future and is non-binding. The commission is granted the right to outside legal counsel at its discretion when it deems a conflict of interest exists between the commission's mission and representation from the city's Department of Law. The chair may lodge a formal complaint with the hiring authority of any employee of the city who does not cooperate with the commission in the lawful execution of its duties and seek relief as defined in Charter 115.5 up to and including termination of an employee.
Say co-chairs there.
Yeah, that's probably why I highlighted it.
So one thing, and I think this might be helpful as we review this, is when you said that these following things should be taken, I would like to see those items numbered, and that also might help us to go through it as well. So I think the first one is the conduct regular meetings.
There's the
And it's there's a small typo, you might as well fix it. Its staff is the possessive, not the contraction.
all right.
And then is all the rest of that, those aren't additional things under that one?
So until we get to here, that's the next natural break. So I know it's a lengthy section, so I can continue on until we get to this break in.
So why don't we continue
Yeah.
on? I think it's not, I think those, what she's asking is, have we put everything in numbers that are the duties that we need to? Can we scroll up more? More?
Yeah, that's kind of the end of
Okay.
of that short list there. And then it just
Okay.
moves to a different,
Right, because then it just says
Should-
that,
Should we move that the executive director has the full authority? Should we move that to the paragraph about attending the meetings?
but is it applying to,
Yeah, it's
All
applying
meetings.
to community, like all those different
it fits
communities.
naturally here.
And then, okay.
So to the chair,
Mhm.
question of the executive director, just for clarification, do we do that now? Does do staff members currently attend these meetings that are listed?
As many as we can, because, we haven't gotten to these meetings yet. So until you get your police training, then each committee, so for instance, training review board meetings, right? So those are something that are coming back in the near future. They've been on hiatus, so it's fine, but they're very important. So who would we assign to that? These fall naturally under committees. So the committees, once we define their work, right, this will be the training committee, right? So a representative, most likely the chair, from that committee will be the person attending training review board meetings. Some of these meetings we've never attended before, but I know they exist and they're very critically important. So the hope is that we will be able to reach out to the division and say, we would like to attend these meetings in the future. It's not an all-encompassing list either, but this is significant sources of information. It's also a significant time commitment. That's why staff can sub, because we're here all the time, right? So it's great if commissioners can attend these, but it's not mandatory that it's a commissioner, so long as we're just making a note that it's the commission's due diligence and its work to be at every meeting possible involving our work.
I'd like to add MRAC to that list.
Sorry. No, I was just gonna follow that up with, this district policing committee meetings, is that the one that Shandra,
Yeah, she.
not Shandra, Zaid, Is that the one she attends?
She had mentioned that she attended hers.
Okay. For her district, okay, so we have some coverage of at least,
Well, they're all over the city.
right, but we have some coverage for hers anyway, at least
Yeah.
one
So
that's happening
mine
now.
happened on the 4th, but our meetings are at the same time.
Okay, okay. I just wanted to acknowledge that she is attending that one on a regular basis now. I didn't know that you were too.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I think some people.
I mean, can we get also a list of these meetings or the schedule?
This is the best list we have right now,
Oh,
so.
of the schedule, so if we wanted to.
And some of them, I don't even have the schedule yet, I just know that they exist. So when it comes time and they become relevant, we will get that out to the appropriate people. The
Some of-
schedule for the district policing committees has already been sent out, and the request has already been made for you to at least at a minimum attend your local backyard district policing committee meeting. I think that email was already sent and the list was there with everything.
Some of them are already included in the update that goes out. Is that every week that it goes out, or yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that they send to us with all the events, yeah.
Chair?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes. Lou.
Currently, MRAC meeting, right now under the new configuration with the city instead of Adamsport has already started. However, currently the meeting initially is only set as a quarterly meeting. So, you have time to determine if you want to have a designated person attending the meeting. Myself, yes, but we don't know if you think it would be a need to have a designated, because that particular meeting is heavily on the police training, dealing with people having mental crisis or constant severe mental health issue, or maybe physical health issue being mistaken as mental health issue. So health issue could be complicated. And myself, I'm also the MREC, the new batch MREC member. So I constantly attending our meeting here. So this part, you don't have to worry about MREC is not participating, but I would like to see if we can have a designated commissioner attending MREC. Right now, myself, I would like to recommend them to change from quarterly to bi-monthly, because the work actually is very heavy, but the city health department may not have that experience yet. Currently, the way they do it is they will give members lots of heavy stuff for us without any discussion to determine based on the knowledge we currently have or not having. So I will try to make sure that we can have, if not monthly, that will be bi-monthly, but that will give the time. I will recommend you guys will have a designated commissioner to attend that meeting regularly.
Thanks, Lynn.
So just a couple of additional points on this list, right? So it's a lot. It seems overwhelming, right? That's why there's key phrases in here. Every effort should be made, right? It's not mandatory that we attend everything, right? And it's the workload's divided by commissioners and its staff, right? So it's we can't be at everything all the time. It's a known. We already know that. Even if you combine all staff and all commissioners and try to attend every meeting that they have related to police and policing, it's impossible. So this is just a suggestive list of how we do our due diligence, right? If we don't write it down, things will get missed. So it should be in the rules that every effort should be made to attend the business that needs attending by the commission, right? So that's why this is here. And if we miss these meetings, or we're not trying to be included in these meetings, we're not doing the community justice at all. This is where we should be, so we can get the information in real time, because the problem will be, this is the meetings where they discuss the business that they want to do or in the process of doing. The sooner we're involved in that discussion, the less conflict there will be later on for us to need to go back and say, well, you guys messed up that policy, now we need to do it. You know, we need to be there when the work gets done, or at least have eyes and ears there to bring back to the commission about the work being done. So that's the point of laying this out this way. That's a lot. There's probably 10 more on here that I'm unaware of that we should be involved in.
To the chair, just a quick question, a comment to the executive director and to the other members here. It seems that the paragraph before that one that begins with conduct regular meetings, it seems that that's where the priorities are. Regular meetings for the director of public safety, the chief of police, police commanders, inspector general, the superintendent of internal affairs, representatives of the civilian police review board, and office of, that paragraph is set aside from the others. So I'm just wondering if that's the priority list.
Well, those are so these meetings exist whether we want them to or not. They're going to move forward, and these meetings are up to us. You know, this number one is, it's up to us to reach out to these key individuals and say, and set a schedule for this. We say, look, quarterly we want to have a commission meeting where the chief of police appears, or the inspector general appears,
So they come to us.
or we go to them in a delegation that we decide. So that's why that's undefined. It just generally says that we should conduct regular meetings. Now we could further define it and say at least twice a year, but then, I don't think it's necessary. I think the point is, these are key people, and if we're not talking to these key people, then we're not doing our job, and that's why we write it in the rules that we should make an effort to have a relationship with these key professionals.
So can we change in number 2, complimentary to E? Complimentary, the word in the first sentence, it's misspelled, it's the wrong.
No, with the E instead of an I.
Complementary. Great. So, so it seems like, these are, and we will, if we need to form a work group to make sure that these are, I think once we get the schedule, maybe we can have a sign up to make sure that we have coverage, based on consumer,
And remember, this is coordination, right? So this is the coordination part of it. It's incumbent on us to to write down rules that mandate that we do these things.
And it's good to just have this so we know that we're not overlapping commissioner work and that people, right, that will help us manage the workflow. So we finished section 2.1. Have we read through the?
No, we didn't get to, so I think right here is where I stopped about the co-chairs may lodge a formal complaint with the hiring authority of any employee of the city who does not cooperate with the commission in the lawful execution of its duties and seek relief as defined in Charter 115.5 up to and including termination of the employee.
Ms. Benito?
This is just a suggestion, but I would like to see just a subheading for these 3 sections. I don't think we need to like make them 2.1.a or whatever, but these are 3 pretty meaty, separate chunks of information, and I think it would be helpful if they had subheadings.
Yeah, I could take a look at that over the next couple days and see how I could break it up. You know, I
mean, I think it's already broken up. It's just put it in
Yeah.
a heading.
Yeah, I could take a look at how. I mean, the only place that I could see as possible subheading is here is, you know,
And I think that's the biggest.
cooperation, you know, something like that. So.
Or dispute. That's more of a dispute section.
So what if, again, are the co-chairs, I'm a little concerned, in that section, it says co-chairs may lodge a complaint. We have to go through the co-chairs?
I would recommend you don't want every
Everybody.
single person on the commission just making allegations of non-cooperation against whoever they please. We already have, and that's gonna come down to flow of information. We're really gonna tighten up who can talk to who and when they can talk to them, you know, formally, not informally. We have no control over that, but we've already had some complaints lodged here about back channeling with city employees, between commissioners and city employees on official business. So if it's not official business, it's one thing, but if you're acting in the capacity of the commission and that employee believes that they're reporting something to the commission or working with the commission in some way on an issue, that shouldn't be done on an individual basis. So we'll get to that. Probably won't get to it tonight, but it's in the flow of information
So
section.
is it up to the co-chair's discretion? Should that be spelled out? Or is it we just go to the co-chair and say we have this? You know, I do want to maintain that I don't think the co-chairs alone can decide whether a complaint should be lodged.
So that I can highlight or red. Sorry. So since this is the first read, and I think we know the next rules committee, we're going to come back with some ideas. So I will make this red here, and if you just make personal notes to come back with your feelings on this and how this could work better, since we're down to less than 10 minutes. So this is just the first read. I think when you come back, you know, you can go through these couple of 2.1 and 2.2 and be a little more informed. So it might be the best use of our time if I just read through it and
Finish reading it and
yeah.
then
I think on that point, in addition to right like that, I think also probably including in there something about how the rest of the commission gets notified about that.
Mhm. So we don't have, you know, also like
Yeah.
crisscrossing, you know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
By the time went fast. Okay, so if we finish reading this section, I think we can have a good stopping point. And I will add a few more sections for us to read for the other ones. But we have 3 sections that are ready for commission. So if you want to continue, Mr. Goodman.
All right, so then I kind of just pull out specific exact wording of the charter sections that are relevant to that top portion here. And I list them as reference at the bottom, so you don't have to go back and find it. In 1.1, we have it in there, and it's in the book, and it'll be in the book multiple times, but it just helps. So here's the specific provisions, and unfortunately, 115.5 doesn't give paragraph numbers. It just is one long paragraph. requesting and timely receiving without the need for making a formal public records request from the city and other departments and offices, including the Division of Police and Director of Public Information relevant to the commission's duties that must be disclosed if requested under Ohio Public Records Act, exercising independent judgment and offering critical analysis in the performance of their duties without interference or non-cooperation from any person, group, or organization, including the Chief of Police, the Director of Public Safety, the Mayor, the Executive Head of the Police Force, or other Division of Police employees, and other city officials. City employees who violate this provision may be subject to discipline. And this is, unfortunately, the typos are not, the typos are in the wording of the ordinance. So this part gets a little confusing at the end, and that's why they had to add a note in the
put
charter.
like a SIC in there. Can we put in either SIC to say that is an error of the, so it's already,
Yeah, we can. I know what you.
or we can put a,
We could put a 2 in a bracket.
2 in a bracket, yeah.
So, like that.
Was this, oh no,
Yeah,
like,
would you
subject
want-
to
The word to-
discipline, so put it in,
So that it shows that we
Oh.
inserted it.
Oh, I see.
we enter it so we can read it.
So this is what's actually in the charter right there, is this note from the law department. So this is another header section of it. Full cooperation by the Chief of Police, Division of Police, and Executive Head of the Police Force required. The Chief of Police, all Division of Police employees, and the Executive Head of the Police Force must fully cooperate with the Commission in performing all of its duties. Failure to do so is a terminable offense, and the Commission may seek injunctive relief for failures. So it doesn't spell out how to do that, right? So that's why here we're recommending that, there's a process where only the co-chairs can lodge that formal complaint. So we can come back and opine on this. It's new territory. And it would mean that everything we're doing and they're doing is wrong if we have to ever get to this point where we have to recommend that the Chief of Police is terminated for non-cooperation. So let's hope we never, ever, ever have to go there. So then 2.2, flow of information. This is very important as well. Data, documents, and testimony are 3 key elements that will help ensure success of this commission. All Cleveland departments and divisions are potential sources of information on policing in the city. In particular, the city's law department, Department of Public Safety, Division of Police, Civilian Police Review Board, Office of Professional Standards, and Cleveland Municipal Court. The Commission's executive director shall work to have established data and information exchange processes with these departments. While regularly produced reports from the Division of Police, such as monthly divisional notices and disposition letters, should always be shared with the Commission, there are times when advanced coordination of information will pay high dividends. In its first year, the Commission's executive director shall work with the Department of Public Safety to attempt, again, it's an attempt, to establish a policy for sharing the following information with the Commission in draft format. When discipline by the Chief of Police or Executive Head of the Police Department is decided and prior to official notification to the officer of outcome. When a new or revised general police order is in draft format prior to its implementation. When a change to policy applications and examinations by which new police recruits must be sought out and recruited and screened, including screened for biases created. When training curriculum is added, updated, or amended. And when applications for the position of police commander are received. So before I move forward, the reason that is the way it is because those are our final power duties, right? Or very extremely powerful duties. So what we're trying to avoid here, we're trying to be part of the process, not wait till it's done and then go back and critique it, right? So that's why these are specifically listed here as points where we can be involved collaboratively instead of going backwards and fixing something that we feel isn't in line with the community later. So policy sharing for these documents and timelines for response action by the commission when warranted should be agreed upon by the CPC and the Department of Public Safety and adopted in this manual. So again, you're putting the work on the executive director to work out some policy that we can adopt in this manual. In the absence of an agreement, the commission shall use its authority to establish a policy or policies for the division that address this section of the manual. Again, if they don't want to come to the table and say, let's set up a system for this, and all these points have been discussed. I spoke to the monitor about it, especially this first one. It's extremely important that we are informed in some manner of what they're going to impose discipline before it's imposed. That way we could say, this one will most likely be one we'll have a problem with and have a discussion before it's imposed and finalized. So that's the ideal point of interaction, is right there, rather than overturning discipline later. If we have a debate about why we think that the discipline is appropriate or inappropriate at the time of before it's finalized, that's the best point to get it. Better for everybody. Now, not saying this is a perfect world. So again, that's why we can test our power here later. If they don't come to the table and make policies with us on it, then we have the authority to make the policies for them, mainly about how they'll share that information with us. So it's important. Regular dashboards and reports shared by command staff and executive leadership related to the Division of Police, CPRB, and OPS should automatically be shared with the commission along with all divisional notices when they are distributed. If possible under the law, limited access should be given to designated CPC staff to run queries in any police data and record management system. This will reduce the need for bureaucratic records requests from the commission and improve efficiency. The commission's executive director shall request a records liaison be assigned by the Department of Public Safety to serve as the principal manager of all commission requests. This person should have the authority to meet requests in a timely manner without delay. The same request will be made to the Civilian Police Review Board. Requests for data and information from any city department by a commissioner shall be made through the executive director in order to ensure proper tracking, delivery, and archiving of the request. That's very important right there. Is not having commissioners randomly ask for information. It has to be centralized. We have to track it on a timeline because it can lead to extreme conflict. A timeline for rules for providing information to the commission for the duration of the consent decree has been already ordered by Judge Solomon Oliver Jr. on September 3rd, 2021, and applies to this section as long as the decree is in effect. The ruling is cited below and it cannot be edited or changed. So the judge ordered as follows. The city and the CDP shall provide all information within 21 days of receipt of a future request for information from the CPC or such other deadline as agreed upon by the CPC, the United States, and the monitoring team. If the city and the CDP object to a future request for information from the CPC, they will submit their objection to the CPC, the United States, and the monitoring team within 7 days of receipt of the request. If either the United States or the monitoring team disagrees with the city's and CDP's objections to the request within 7 days of the objection being made, the city will produce the information, or it may petition the court to relieve it of its obligation to produce the information within 7 days after receiving notice of the disagreement. This order does not mean that language in 115.5 that mandates cooperation does not apply. The commission has subpoena power, and the commission shall seek legal counsel anytime the division or another city agency refuses to share information if it requests it. Beginning in its second year, the commission shall make good faith effort to share a strategic framework with the community and stakeholders each year no later than January 31st. The framework shall contain objectives and priorities for the following year, including any audits of performance or planned major policy work. The commission shall solicit community feedback in the months leading to the development of the plan to ensure the objectives of the commission continue to align with the needs and concerns of various communities in Cleveland. The framework does not limit what can be done in the year, and the commission reserves the right to add or remove work from its framework should a need arise. With the exception of the first year, an annual report shall also be prepared no later than March 1st of each year that summarizes the work and outcomes of the commission in the preceding year. The commission shall also endeavor to publish factual material, reports, recommendation, and notices as the commission deems important within the scope of its work. A lot to take in. You'll have some time to digest it.
Yeah, because to the chair, I do have some questions, but since
We can-
we're
yeah,
not
we-
looking to approve this tonight, I can
Right.
hold those.
So I would ask us to reread those two sections, like I said, and continue on. Maybe I'll add two more sections, but feel free to continue reading and thinking. And we will. So our next meeting is the 20th, right?
April 20th.
April 20th. That's been confirmed, right? From 5 to 7 again.
To the chair, one
Yes.
quick question of the executive director. Do we have any input on the police lowering its age for?
Yeah, there was a memo sent out today, so check
I
your.
saw that, okay, I saw the memo. So it's not a decision yet.
It's before the Ohio legislature,
Okay.
yes. And it'll be on the agenda of, next Wednesday's meeting. So, if the commission were to, want to make a, formally say, we adopt a position on this, then it can be discussed at that meeting, yes.
So, okay, so we will plan, to move 2.7, 2.8, 2.9. That'll be part of my, I'll be chair pro tem, but we will move that for voting. Please, if you, I'm going to send out an email saying these are the sections, please go over them, ask me any questions. If you have, conversations with other commissioners that are not on our committee, that would be fine. Please bring back the feedback so we can pass those sections, and deal with also encompass all the feedback from the other commissioners. So I think that's enough time. We have till next Wednesday to do that. All right, so I think we are adjourned unless there's any other concerns. So our next meeting will be what day of the week is that?
Thursday, April.
Thursday, April 20th from 5 to 7. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good Easter, everybody.
Nice.
I mean, if they travel, you know,
Huh?